Lieutenant Commander Rhea Mendez's mission was supposed to be simple, routine, even. As a decorated Terran scout and tactical analyst, she had been deployed on dozens of covert recon missions. This one was meant to be a quick in-and-out Operation Observe, the suspected location of a Hagari raiding fleet in the Oryx Nebula. Verify their numbers, tag their vessels with stealth tracking probes, and leave. No contact, no combat. No complications, but nothing about the Hagari was ever simple. The Oryx Nebula was a storm of charged particles, swirling light storms, and natural sensor disruptions. It was perfect cover for a fleet planning to strike, and even better for an ambush. Rhea had barely finished tagging the last vessel when 12 Hagari warships decloaked from the mist like sharks circling blood. Her scout vessel, fast, agile, but unarmored, stood no chance. They didn't destroy her outright. That, in hindsight, was their first mistake. They wanted her alive. She crash-landed on one of their dreadnoughts, torn from the cockpit by armored claws, stripped of her weapons, and thrown into a containment cell. Shackled, bruised, and bleeding, she still sat upright, back straight, expression composed as the Hagari interrogators filed in to see what kind of weak prey they had captured. The Hagari were a war-hardened species from the edge of the Persea's arm. Known for their brutality and total lack of diplomacy, they believed fear was the truest weapon. To them, a single human woman alone, cornered and outnumbered, was no more than a trophy, a sign of their strength. Supreme Warlord Vaxer, the leader of this fleet, stood nearly 10 feet tall in his biomechanical exoskeleton armor. His voice guttural and dripping with contempt, he circled Rhea like a predator would circle a wounded animal. So, he rumbled, "This is what the Terran Alliance sends into our territory? A soft-blooded female scout?" His generals hissed with laughter, their claws twitching in amusement. The implication was clear. This wasn't war. This was sport. But Rhea didn't respond with fear. She didn't tremble. She didn't plead. She smiled. It was a small thing, barely a shift in her lips, but it froze Vaxor in place. He leaned in, his eyes narrowing. "You dare smile at your captors?" Still bleeding from a gash above her eyebrow, looked directly into his eyes and answered with chilling calm, "I'm not the one who should be afraid." The room fell silent. Vaxor's expression twitched with uncertainty. Perhaps it was bluff. Perhaps it was madness. But her tone held something more than defiance. It held assurance, as if she knew something they didn't. One of the lieutenants stepped forward. "Your ship is destroyed. Your signal is gone. You are alone. Surrender your data. Speak now, or we begin extraction." Rhea slowly tilted her head. Her voice never raised, never faltered. "You're wrong. I'm not alone." Earth's mechanical limbs clicked as he slammed one into the ground beside her. "Then who will save you?" Rhea's smile widened, just a fraction. "Earth is already on the way." That was when Vaxar truly paused. The Hagari were not used to their prey being calm in the face of death, not used to humans smiling in defeat. Certainly not used to someone speaking with certainty about rescue after being completely surrounded. He snarled, "Your signal was jammed. There is no way they know where you are." "You misunderstand," she said, her voice low but steady. "I wasn't trying to send data. I was just marking you."
The silence that followed was heavier than before. What did she mean by marking?
Was it some kind of Terran trick? A technology they hadn't detected? Vaxer didn't know? And that uncertainty? That moment of hesitation? It meant the trap she'd triggered was already in motion. The Hagari believed they had captured a scout, but what they'd really done was step into the sights of an angry planet, and Rhea knew the countdown had begun. She wasn't afraid. She was just waiting. The Hagari believed that by destroying Rhea Mendez's scout vessel, they had silenced her. They believed her comms were gone, her data unrecoverable, her location untraceable. What they didn't realize was that her mission had already succeeded. In sending a message, but in planting one. Before her ship was crippled by the ambush, Rhea had launched a microbeacon. It was a Terran invention born from centuries of asymmetric warfare, spycraft, and deathworld engineering. No larger than a fingernail, and invisible to most sensor arrays. The device carried a quantum tag and was equipped with auto-linking protocols to attach itself to hostile energy. Signatures. Rhea hadn't just launched one, she'd launched dozens. The beacon swarms scattered into the nebula, hitching rides on the hulls, exhaust trails, and even weapon emitters of the Higari fleet. From that moment on, every ship that took part in her capture became part of a grid of moving constellation, visible only to Earth's long-range defense AI. The data wasn't streamed live. It was locked into a quantum burst, released after a preset delay to ensure safety and stealth, the moment her ship was destroyed. The Terran Alliance's Hammer Protocol went active. Hammer Protocol was not designed for diplomacy. It was a military doctrine born out of necessity, forged during the Orion conflict decades ago. Its purpose was simple. If a scout was attacked without provocation and no extraction window existed, Earth would respond with overwhelming force to whatever system their final mark indicated. There were no questions, no debates, no committees. System acted this time. The one to act was Earth Vanguard Battle Group OMEGA-4, a fleet so classified that most Terran citizens didn't even know it existed. While Earth maintained standard fleets for trade defense and peacekeeping across allied sectors, OMAC-4 was something else entirely. It was Earth's Iron Handa, Ghost fleet designed for full-spectrum retaliation, stationed far beyond the political center of Terran space. Omega-4 was already in motion the moment the beacon pinged its destination. It didn't request diplomatic clearance. It didn't respond to inquiries from neutral factions. It simply disappeared from its dockyards, entering slipspace with a single directive: Terran blood spilled. Target marked. Respond with all force. Back aboard the Higari dreadnought, Rhea endured more than physical pain. Her body ached. Her wounds throbbed. The medjol they'd used to keep her alive was primitive and burned her skin. But none of it truly bothered her. The real struggle was waiting, knowing that Earth's retribution had begun, but not knowing when it would arrive. The Higari were trying to extract information, first through intimidation, then through interrogation, then through technology neural probes, chemical truth serums, deep pattern mind scans. But Rhea had prepared for this. Earth's deep ops. Operatives were enhanced with mental conditioning. That could slow cognitive function, redirect memory access, and mask intent. Rhea leaned into those drills now. She let herself drift just above consciousness when needed, never breaking, never revealing anything more than what the Higari already knew, and still, she smiled. Each time Vaxer entered her chamber, expecting her to beg, he saw it. That smile. Not of arrogance, but of certainty. It began to gnaw at him. He had commanded 100 conquests. It shattered fleets, raised colonies, enslaved species. But this human. "You know," he demanded one evening, slamming a clawed fist against the wall, "why do you smile?" Rhea tilted her head and whispered, "Because I'm not here to win. I'm here to point." He stared, confused. "I marked you," she said softly. "That was the mission. I don't need to survive. I just needed you to find me." It was then Vaxer realized the flaw in their thinking. The silence they took as victory wasn't silence. It was stealth. The data wasn't sent via signal. It was embedded in space, tied to their fleet, wrapped around their hulls like invisible chains. His eyes widened. The entire Higari fleet wasn't just holding a prisoner. They were holding a beacon, a glowing target for something far worse than a lone human scout. They had taken the bait, and Earth was already inbound. Supreme Warlord Vaxor had captured hundreds of enemy agents in his lifetime. Many had been proud, some had even been brave, but none had ever smiled while being interrogated. Rhea Mendez's composure was becoming a tactical problem. After days of confinement, bruises, and failed extraction attempts, Vaxor was no closer to understanding her than when she first arrived. She refused to break. Her answers remained cryptic. And always, always, that smile lingered on her lips like a curse. The Higari weren't known for restraint. When physical interrogation failed, they turned to their more refined methods: neurological manipulation and psychic deconstruction. In the sterile glow of the dreadnought's mind chamber, Rhea was strapped into an invasive interface rig. Dozens of neural filaments snaked toward her skull, designed to dig through thought patterns, decode emotional stress, forcibly extract memory strings. It was painful, intimate, violation at the level of the soul. And yet, when the procedure started, something strange happened. The interface couldn't get a clean signal. Data loops collapsed. Memories fragmented into dead ends. Emotions cross-wired into paradoxes. The operator, a Higari mind tech named Zara, clicked in frustration. Her thought matrices scrambled. She has psychic discipline protocols installed. Civilian-grade agents don't have this, Vaxer growled, stepping forward. Break her. I've tried. She's not resisting in the normal sense. She's hiding behind her own neural loops. This was trained, prepared. That was the second thing that unnerved Vaxer. This wasn't a scout with raw talent. This was a planted operator, someone deliberately sent to be captured. He stormed out of the chamber, confused and increasingly furious. Meanwhile, Rhea retreated further into her mental bastion. Earth's elite officers were trained for worst-case scenarios. Deep mental shielding, emotional suppression layers, even compartmentalized thought maps, all designed to make their minds useless to interrogators. Pain was a given, confusion a tool, time. Time was all she needed. Each hour Earth wasn't there was one step closer to when they would be. Omega-4 had already crossed halfway across the sector in slipspace, running silent and fast. With zero emissions and advanced spectral masking, they were invisible to most long-range scans. But they weren't hiding, they were hunting. The human battle group was made up of 52 warships, ranging from fast-attack cruisers to carrier-class juggernauts. Each one was pre-armed with variable-yield rail cannons, gravitic warheads, and the infamous Earth's Hand, a guided kinetic strike system capable of hitting targets with suborbital precision. What made Mecher for more terrifying than its arsenal, though, was its doctrine. It didn't communicate, didn't negotiate. It answered. Back on the dreadnought, Vaxer stood before a star map, watching the spread of his fleet. They had begun preparation to leave the Oryx Nebula. Supplies were dwindling. Raids were set to begin soon. And yet, something gnawed at him. His instincts were screaming. This wasn't how humans reacted to death. This wasn't how they surrendered. This woman, this plant, was acting with knowledge, certainty. And that certainty was infectious. It spread among the Higari bridge crew. Officers whispered about the captive, about her calm, about how she wasn't afraid. They began asking, what if she wasn't bluffing? Vaxor ordered a triple check on long-range sensors. He forced a systems audit of cloaking sweeps and hyperspace corridor monitors. He even ordered a purge of any strange signals. But it was already too late. The micro-beacons had already transmitted. Rhea returned to her cell, sat against the wall. Her body ached, her breathing shallow, but her mind was clear.
Itch.
Every breath was a countdown. She could feel it. They would be close now, maybe hours away. She looked up at the ceiling, imagining the stars above her. She pictured Earth, the cities, the oceans, the places she loved, the people she'd never see again. She had accepted death when she launched those beacons, but now she felt something else. Hope. Not for herself, but for what was coming. The final mistake came later that cycle. When Vaxer stormed into her cell, surrounded by elite guards, his tone had changed. The arrogance had dimmed. There was anger. Yes, but also a shade of fear. What did you do? He demanded. I marked you, she said simply. The Higari had always prided themselves on overwhelming force. In every war they started, they had been the first to strike and the last to retreat. Their dreadnoughts were symbols of domination, bristling with plasma cannons, shield towers, and atmospheric disruptors. In the Oryx Nebula, their fleet stretched across sectors, hidden by electromagnetic storms and cloaking arrays. But pride often blinds. In this case, it blinded them completely to what was approaching. Omega-4 did not come with announcements, no negotiations, no warnings. The fleet broke through slipspace in perfect silence. 52. Terran warships erupting from folds in reality like rising gods. Massive cruisers and railgun frigates glided through the void with calm menace, hulls black and matte. To absorb light, each ship had only one directive: retaliate with total force. Their emergence was detected only seconds before they fired, and by then, it was far too late. Back aboard the Higari dreadnought, alarm klaxons howled. Red emergency lights pulsed along every corridor. Crew members scrambled, confused and disoriented. As ships across the fleet reported hostile contacts at extreme close range, Vaxer stood on the bridge, frozen, watching the holographic display. Light up with warnings: unidentified vessels 50+ dropping from hyperspace. Origin vector, Sol Alliance. Terran signatures confirmed. Somehow they're behind our line. How did they bypass the perimeter? Claws clenched. Arm all batteries. Ray shields. Prepare for immediate engagement. But Earth's war doctrine was not designed for battles of attrition. It was designed for shock and end. The first Terran volley came like a hammer blow. Precision rail slugs, invisible and faster than light, tore through the shields of a Higari heavy cruiser and shattered its reactor core in a brilliant explosion. Another Shipan escort destroyer was bisected mid-flight by a gravitic lance, splitting its hull open like a metal fruit. Vaxer could only stare in less than 20 seconds. 2 of his ships were gone. He turned to his officers. Return fire. All ships scatter and retaliate. The Higari fired back, plasma bolts and fusion torpedoes lighting up the stars. But Earth's ships moved with terrifying coordination, slipping between attacks with micro-jumps and distortion. Fields. Their formations were tight, deliberate, flawless. This wasn't a fleet. This was a response system made of metal and fury. Deep within the dreadnought, Ria Mendez sat upright as the first tremor shook the ship. The sound of distant explosions echoed through the walls like drums of liberation. She smiled, not the smile of confidence she'd worn before, but a quiet, personal one. The kind born from truth. They came. Her rescue wasn't theoretical anymore. It wasn't a bluff or a gamble. A -4 had arrived, and Earth had brought hell with it. On the bridge, Vaxer began to realize something that chilled even him. The Terrans had no interest in conversation. No broadcast came. No offer for surrender. Not even a demand. Just destruction. This was retribution, not war. Why aren't they responding? He bellowed. Open a channel, try to hail them. Comes officer stammered. They're ignoring all frequencies. Then signal retreat. Pull us out. But again too late. 3 more ships exploded across the fleet as Terran bombers deployed magneto-torpedoes. A battle carrier tried to jump to hyperspace and was annihilated mid-charge by a kinetic spike round. Omega-4 had already predicted every escape route, every formation, every counter. They weren't chasing. They were executing. Back in the prison sector, the power flickered. Automated locks disengaged. Doors hissed open. Ria rose to her feet, staggering slightly, muscles stiff but heart steady. She reached the corridor and saw 2 figures emerge from the smoke humans in full Terran Vanguard combat armor. Visors gleamed, rifles poised, movements smooth and silent. The lead Marine stopped and spoke through an external modulator. Commander Mendez, we're here to extract you. She nodded slowly. Took you long enough. Got here early. Just wanted to make an entrance. Behind them, gunfire echoed as more boarding teams spread through the ship like a virus. The dreadnought's defenses were failing. Internal resistance was collapsing. Earth wasn't taking prisoners. Vaxer watched from the bridge's main viewport as another of his cruisers split apart. The human warships were converging. He slumped back into his command chair, breath shallow. This was,
Yes.
just a scout, he whispered. She was alone. And then the horror dawned. What if she wasn't the only one? What if every human scout was like her? He buried his face in his claws, shaking. They had captured 1 woman. The Higari dreadnought was dying. Bulkheads buckled from within. Decks trembled with each impact. Earth strike teams were everywhere, room by room, hallway by hallway, clearing the ship with brutal precision. the mighty flagship of Supreme. Warlord Vaxer, once thought invincible, had become a steel tomb, and in the middle of it all stood Lieutenant Commander Rhea Mendez-Bruised, bloodied and free. Terran Marines flanked her, their weapons primed as they guided her through the smoke-choked corridors. But Rhea didn't need protecting. Not anymore. She walked with her back straight, her face calm, and that same unsettling, unmistakable smile. The Hagari had mocked it once now. It was the last thing many of them would ever see. On the bridge, Vaxer watched the nightmare unfold in silence. Gone was the bluster. Gone was the arrogance. Every ship he'd trusted to defend him was either burning, fleeing, or gone. Communications were in disarray. Half of his remaining officers were dead, the rest panicking. His empire's legacy was unraveling in real time, and all because of one woman, one human. A scout, no, a weapon. Because that's what she truly was. Not bait, not a spy, but a deliberate lure. A sacrificial key to Earth's locked vengeance. She hadn't needed to win. She only needed to be found, and they had done exactly what she wanted. In one of the final secured corridors, Terran forces cleared a path to the command deck. Rhea stepped over Hagari corpses as she moved with her escort, the gunfire fading behind her. Ahead, the bridge door slid open. Inside, Vaxer stood, massive and bloodied, his armor sparking and cracked. Alone now, defiant, but afraid. He locked eyes with her. "You," he spat. Rhea didn't flinch. "Me? You think this is over? That your kind can kill us and walk away? We are the Hagari. We are war." She stepped forward, slowly, carefully.
Oh.
"You were bullies who thought Earth wouldn't answer." Basor lunged, his claws outstretched, pure rage and desperation in motion. Rhea didn't move before he reached her. A rail blade from a Terran Marine struck his shoulder, sending him crashing to the floor. Armor cracked. Blood spilled. Still, Rhea stood tall. She looked down at him not with hate, but with quiet finality. "You could have killed me when you had the chance," she said. "But you didn't, because you needed to feel superior." He coughed, fangs bared. "We wanted to break you." She crouched beside him, eyes calm, and instead, "I broke your fleet." Vaxor choked on blood, voice trembling. "You weren't afraid." "I was," she admitted. "But I trusted Earth more than I feared you." She stood up. Then, turning to the Marine sergeant beside her, she gave the only command that mattered. "Burn the rest." Across the sector, the full force of a megaphor came to bear. The Terran fleet, having obliterated all frontline resistance, shifted its attention to the remaining escapees. Destroyers running for hyperspace were tagged and vaporized.
Oh.
Wrecks were left to drift, inert, marked forever as tombstones of arrogance. It was not a war. It was a lesson. Earth did not broadcast victory. Earth didn't gloat. It answered, and when Earth answers, it does so with silence, fire, and finality. Back aboard the Terran command ship TSV Vindicator, Rhea sat in a medical bay as nanite swarms patched her wounds. The lights were warm. The walls hummed softly. It felt like being reborn. General Kairos, the fleet commander, entered quietly. "You held longer than any scout we've ever deployed," he said. She met his gaze. "I just had to last long enough. You did more than that." He sat beside her. The Hagari Council has gone silent. Half their territories are in retreat. "That smile of yours?" he chuckled. "It's going to be studied at every war college on Earth." She blinked at him. "It wasn't for them." "Who then?" She looked at her reflection in the med glass. "It was for me." Later, as the Vindicator set a course back to Sol, a message was sent from Earth's High Command to all Terran Deep Recon units. Protocols confirmed. Beacons functional. Earth will always respond. Across hundreds of systems, that signal echoed, and in the dark corners of the galaxy, where predatory empires whispered of human weakness, a new tale began to spread, not of weapons, or fleets, or bombs, but of a woman, alone, outnumbered, smiling.